I'm Katie Wells, host of the Maximized Minimalist podcast. I escaped the hamster wheel of modern-day motherhood, overwhelmed by clutter and buried under the mental load. Now I live in a home that feels calm, manageable, and made for real life. I have margin in my days, energy for who matters most, and time for slow mornings and silly dance parties in the kitchen with my family. With over 5 million listens, the show has helped women around the world turn their homes into their happy place. Around here, we simplify for more peace, more presence, and more joy. We choose grace over guilt and progress over perfection. And we believe your home should give back more than it takes. I'm here to help you do the same. Come along with me and my guests as we share the real stories, habits, and strategies that help you lighten the load from the inside out. Pull up a seat, friend, and let's do this together. Ready, set, simplify. Hello, Andrew Wells. Welcome back to the show.
It's great to be back. I'm surprised I got an invite.
You said that last time. And it's just a touch and go. So if it does well, if I hear from listeners that they enjoyed it, you'll be invited back. But if not, I think we'll just not record our conversations anymore.
Well, they better like it because I showered. I put a clean shirt on. Let's do this.
They can't see you.
Darn it. All that for nothing. I wore deodorant too. Can they smell me?
Thank goodness. So, one of the biggest fears people have around decluttering is, what if I need this someday? And I want to tell the listeners that I think very recently, in a very real way, we lived through this kind of scenario, this worst case scenario. So a few months back, for context, we discovered mold in our basement and had to get rid of really a ton of stuff very quickly to try to reduce the mold spreading. If you've dealt with mold, it's the worst. And for context, we were lucky in the sense that our basement is completely separate from our home and separate HVAC. So luckily it didn't spread upstairs and, through the HVAC system. But for context, our basement works, I would say it's one of the hardest working rooms in our house because it serves as Andrew's office. It's our workout space. I would almost say it's kind of our little wellness area too. We have our little pop-up sauna and some other kind of wellness stuff down there. And then it's also our guest space when people stay the night and visit. Right behind that little finished space that had mold in it, the mold also spread into our crawl space, which at the time was just dirt floor. That's where we stored things like anything seasonal, holiday decor, emergency food, stuff like that. And really the reality is, because I am who I am, for better or for worse, most of the things down there, I would say, weren't clutter. So it's things we were using, and it was that was a hard process, and we'll kind of break that down. That was frustrating for me in that sense, having to let go of those types of things. But today, I wanted to have Andrew back on because I want to talk about what we learned when really this process wasn't optional. I think people who've experienced maybe not mold, but something similar where you just had to get rid of stuff. We had a few disagreements along the way, believe it or not. We had a little sadness, a little frustration, and we'll talk about what surprised us about what we actually miss versus what we've already forgotten about. I can guarantee you we've forgotten about a lot, maybe more so for me because I don't go in that space too much except to work out. And I think this experience too, for me, came at the tail end of, having my first book finished. And it was just such a clarifying real life example of what my book is, a part of what my book is about. And that is understanding your relationship with stuff. And so you can make clear decisions, process, how to let go without spiraling and second guessing yourself and figuring out what you need versus what you're just holding on to out of fear. So let's get into it. Hi.
I'm in that basement right now. So I'm recording. Like Katie said, I work in the basement. So this hit me pretty heavily because I lost my workspace temporarily while we were going through all this. But as we're recording this, I'm back in the basement. So I'm on the other side of it.
You're thriving. What's it like? Someone asked me to ask you this. So what's it like to be married to someone like me whose job is to help people declutter? And has this experience changed the way you think about your own stuff or the way we manage our home?
So for the first question, what is it like to be married to a declutter expert? It's interesting because I don't think of you as that. And if you're wondering, our conversations around the dinner table around decluttering tactics and it is not that couldn't be further from the truth. We actually don't talk about decluttering. We don't talk about things that you guys discuss on the podcast. So I really don't even see Katie in that light very much. I see her as a wife and a mom and a business owner. So it's not like, we're not talking about, I couldn't even name some of like the things that you teach and tactics and things like that. But also I think like if you were to walk in our house, I don't think that you would know, oh, this is a declutter expert lives here, or like an
Yes.
organizer lives here.
Yes.
It's just like a normal home. And it's not like this pristine thing you would see on like an Instagram account. Like
Mhm.
it's not like a staged house where everything is perfect. It's a house that gets used. This is a house that we cook in. We have dishes on the counter. We have toys on the floor. So it's probably not what you would expect as the listener if you're envisioning what our home looks like. It looks like a normal home. We just don't have like piles of junk and crap everywhere like I had growing up. I was thinking about our house growing up. Like we had bookshelves just full of like random stuff. There'd be like books, but there's also like knickknacks, and there'd be someone's coffee mug up there that had been sitting there for 2 months, and like weird, I don't know, we had some weird stuff on our shelves, but we don't have that kind of stuff. I think we have a very normal home. So what is it like to be married to a declutter expert? I don't think of Katie as that. I just think of Katie as my wife, which is a good thing, I think. Yeah. So that's how I think about it. What was the second part to that question? What was the second part?
Was the mold experience and having to toss so much of our stuff that wasn't clutter, did that change the way you view your own stuff? Or did that leave a mark for better or for worse on you? Or have you like completely moved on?
This particular moment in time with mold comes on the heels of being married to the declutter expert for 6 years. I think you've been doing this for about 6 years, if I remember right. And or I think the process even maybe started a few years before that. For me, it's been a slow and steady process. And so when it came time to this one single event happening, naturally, it was really quicker for me to go through the emotions of decluttering, of getting rid of things that were mostly sentimental things and some things that I use as like a utility. It was much easier for me to let go of those things because I've already been through that process. So I know what it felt like. I also knew what it would feel like on the tail end of this most recent decluttering purge because of mold. So it was a very familiar thing. And I knew that going into it, I wasn't going to be wrestling with certain emotions like maybe I did 6, 7, 8 years ago when we started this process. As Katie's probably talked about on the podcast before, I was certainly somebody who held on to stuff, both on the emotional side and also for the I'm going to use this one day side. And I just think back of when we were, first married and moving, different places around the country. We had a whole room, a guest bedroom full of all my crap, and there was a
Mm-hmm.
kayak in one of our rooms. There was a kayak, but not only was there a kayak in the room, the kayak was stacked and perched on top of boxes and crates of other crap that I was going to be using one day. And just stuff I've accumulated over the years. I'm like, well, maybe I'll do this, I'll race and use a kayak again, or maybe I don't know, I don't even know what was in that room anymore. But yeah, I've been there. If you didn't know, you might walk in that room and say, Andrew's a hoarder. I mean, that guest bedroom was a hoarder's bedroom for sure. No doubt about it. I just had it isolated from the actual normal living spaces in our house. I will say that not only like now I know what to do, like how to get rid of things. And I was much more prepared emotionally for the feelings afterward.
So I would say over the years, and by the way, that guest bedroom was an apartment we had many years ago, pre-kids. I think even the word decluttering didn't even exist back then. Like it was all organizing. And to some extent it still is, but we're changing that narrative. So I remember that. Yes, I remember we had two cats at the time, and it was like their hangout spot. Like it was like where's Waldo? like which box is he on? It was filled to the brim with boxes. And then that was in Wilmington, North Carolina. When we moved to Asheville, I was like, maybe we should go through some of this. No, I'm going to use it. I'm going to use it. And I think everyone can relate to that to a certain extent. And in your defense, when we met, you did a little kayaking. So, I mean, it served a purpose at one point. But I think the stuff, talking about like the slow process of simplifying throughout the years for you, and I think this happens to everyone, you hit a point where you're like, I feel good about progress. Let's talk specifically about sentimental things for a second. Like, okay, this stuff isn't maybe so meaningful to me. And I think on our last episode, you're like, I will never let go of my 5K t-shirts, because I've had people over the years message me on Instagram, be like, does he want to turn it into a quilt? Can he repurpose it? And I'm like, no, y'all, like I've asked him that. He doesn't want to. I mean, it's such a great idea too. So I appreciated those DMs. So those were in the crawl space. And also you had, I would say, 3 bins of, which by the way, like it's all subjective. Is that too much? You came to, when we met, you had like 20 bins of sentimental. So to 3 over the years was major progress. Even though on my side of things, I'm like, he can get rid of more, but I didn't push it. But when we started getting back into the crawl space and pulling the stuff out to see what we had to let go of, what we could salvage through sanitizing, talk about your t-shirts. You were able to save a few of those. And I think it was so interesting, like how those are being used now, finally. And I'm curious how you feel, like walk us through that.
So I found this infamous duffel bag that I was storing all these t-shirts in. And when I opened it up, I knew it was in there. I'm like, oh crap, I've got to make some decisions here. And when I opened up this duffel bag and I looked in there, I'm like, wait a minute, I've already gotten rid of most of these t-shirts. And I forgot about that. It was weird. I thought when I was opening it up, I had in my mind's eye, I had this idea of what t-shirts were going to be in there. And I realized, oh, I already decluttered those years ago and I totally forgot about it. But I did hold on to some of the ones that were really sentimental. So 2 of the t-shirts were from my very first and second 5Ks. And I remember those races really clearly. And so those, I'm really happy, actually, I held on to those. And then I had a couple t-shirts from the Chicago Bulls. I grew up in the 90s when the Chicago Bulls were like the greatest team of all time, and Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen and Dennis Rodman. I had a couple like championship t-shirts, which now are collector's items. And it's funny because Katie and I were in Iowa over the summer. We went into a vintage t-shirt or vintage clothing shop, and they had one of the t-shirts like up on a hanger on display, like it was a cool t-shirt, and they had this crazy price tag on it. It was a lot of money. And I'm like, oh, I used to have that t-shirt. And when I opened up the duffel bag a month ago, I'm like, holy cow, I had this t-shirt, the one that was in the vintage shop, and it's worth like X amount of money retail. I'm like, that's amazing. I'm like, oh, this would be cool to give to our boys. And we showed the t-shirts to our boys, and then they're like, whoa, those are really cool. They actually both really like the t-shirts, and they're like, this one's mine and this one's mine. And it's really neat to see them wearing the t-shirts that I wore when I was in high school, which is pretty crazy. But yeah, so I actually got rid of, so this is like the second big purge. I got rid of a bunch of other t-shirts that I was saving in the duffel bag. And I think we kept like maybe half a dozen t-shirts. And one of them I wear like as a nighttime t-shirt. It's like big and roomy. It's actually from elementary school. Has all my buddies' names on the back of the shirt. That's kind of cool. So I wear that now. We wash them and all that stuff. But as I was thinking about the t-shirt thing, because I knew you're gonna ask me about this. Do I miss the t-shirts? Did I have a hard time getting rid of the t-shirts this second go around? And honestly, I don't miss the t-shirts that I got rid of. I didn't even know that they were gone. I thought I still had those, and I don't miss them. Mm-hmm. And as I was getting ready for this podcast this morning, and I was driving in the car, and I was like, you know what? Did the t-shirts really matter? And the reality is they don't. And really the t-shirts were reminders of really happy times. And, when I look at the t-shirts, I remember, when I was a kid, I remember waking up early on Saturday mornings. I remember getting in the car with my dad driving me to these races and having time in the car with my dad. And, most of the time we didn't talk because he wasn't a big talker, and it was morning and we were just getting ready for the race. But it was a certain feeling I got hanging out with my dad on Saturday morning. And I remember, you can't cry, Katie, you're making me cry. And
Sorry.
I remember, the feeling of my dad, waiting at the finish line for me. That was a really good feeling. I remember him, just being really supportive as a dad. And I didn't spend a ton of time with my dad growing up because he was working a lot. But when I look back at the t-shirts, that's the stuff that it reminds me of that feeling. And it reminds me like when I had I would have a bad race and my dad would be like, what happened? And that was always like a really hard critic on myself. That was always my harshest judge. I remember getting so pissed at my dad when I'd have a bad race. He's like, what happened? He'd make me even more angry. And that, it reminds, I can laugh at that now, but it reminds me of those moments. So it really wasn't about like the t-shirt. It was about the memory of what I was doing with my dad at the time. And I still have those. I didn't throw those away. Those are in me. That same feeling is in me. And I get the same feeling now when I do, hang out with our boys on the weekends. I'm like, oh, this is what it must have felt like for my dad. Those experiences, those are with me forever. And you can't throw those out. I haven't thrown those out. And I can still remember, I still remember those little moments. So the t-shirts are gone, but the memories are still there. And that's meaningful.
Yeah.
When running was a thing, and running 5 and 10Ks was a bigger thing in the 80s and 90s when people started working out and jogging and doing races and stuff. As a kid, people would always ask me, why do you do those races? What do you get from it? And I'm like, as a kid, my answer was, well, you get a t-shirt and you get a medal if you get to third. Right. And now as an adult, I'm like, that's not why we do any of those things. You do it because it's an experience. It's a memory. It's a way that it makes you feel. And I still have that. That's woven into my fiber as a human being. And so to throw away, and in the last big purge, I had to throw away a bunch of trophies and medals and that stuff. And I don't miss that stuff. I don't miss the t-shirts. I do miss the time I spent with my dad, though. And that's why that it's so easy to get rid of that stuff right now, because I know that those times were real experiences that are with me forever, and the t-shirts are going to eventually be dust. I'll eventually be dust, hopefully a long time from now. But until that point, I get to remember those really fun times.
Oh, I think that's so beautifully said. And that's right. And that's the heart of it, right? It's the meaning we assign this stuff. And that is exactly why, again, to me, it's I know so many couples disagree over what clutter is. And it's easy to look at someone else's stuff, your husband's or your partner's or your kids, and be like, oh my gosh, this is clutter. I can't stand it. I'm triggered. He should get rid of all this junk. And then it's of course, not everything's sentimental or has emotional ties, but for stuff like this, I recognize that pretty quickly. It's not a utility, which I tend to make as my primary concept of, is this helping my life? Is this clutter or not? But there is value in curating the best of the best. And that's what you did throughout the years. And like you said, now it just worked out where our kids, they might, be a little bit big on our kids, but the boys were so excited to get those t-shirts from you. And I'm so glad we were able to salvage a couple, 6 of them or so. Probably a big full circle moment. And just like you said, those memories are always there. You can tap into that feeling whenever you want to. And now it's that feeling is also full circle, not just the t-shirt being worn, but it's you are the dad driving your kids to their games, to their basketball events, to their 5Ks. And I imagine that's a pretty heartwarming experience.
It is. And I really appreciate from you too. There was never a lot of external pressure from you on me saying, hey, you need to get rid of this stuff. And here's why. This happened over a long period of time. And so I know that most of your listeners are women. I know there's men listening as well, but most of them are women. I would just say, if you're married or have a significant other or a partner, just be patient with them. As Katie was patient with me in this stuff, some of these things I've held on to for 35 years. I've been holding on more. Some of the stuff I just got rid of, I've actually had more than 35 years. And so I'm really appreciative that as the declutter expert, you never really gave me any pressure to get rid of any of that stuff. But what I've learned over the years in getting rid of stuff, just because you've been doing it, I've been doing it, and you've modeled it for me. And slowly, as I've come along, I've come to realize that what you teach is really impactful for people, from an emotional health standpoint, from a physical health standpoint, from a mental health standpoint. What you're teaching is great. And I've come to realize that life with not a lot of material junk laying around that you don't need is so much better. It's easier. Life is so much easier. Life is so much happier. And that it wasn't a 3-month process for me. It wasn't a 14-day challenge for me. It was a lifelong challenge, but I've come through it. And that's why this recent mold experience was so much easier. I think you would agree, most of that we got rid of. I think it was 2 trailer loads full of stuff. And by the way, this was mostly my stuff, almost all of it. Part of it was just stuff in the basement that was furniture and carpets and stuff like that. But also a good chunk of it was the remnants of my the tail end of my declutter process as well. The last things that I knew I should have gotten rid of a long time ago. And I think you'd agree, this go around was a lot easier for me. Yes. Not just because I've been through it before, but also when stuff is moldy, you have a decision to make. Well, do I keep this thing that I have sentimental attachment to, knowing that this is going to harm our health if we keep it around, because it was already harming my health? Or if I get rid of it, will that be a positive thing? And when clutter is attached to health physically, literally at this point, because it was moldy, it was such an easy decision. Oh, we just get rid of it.
Yeah. I want to hit on the trophy thing too. That was something I think you phrased it like I had to declutter those in the last round. Like you chose to, like you felt ready to. And I just want to hit this because I think sometimes and often with sentimental things, we kind of expect like this HGTV before and after when you're tackling sentimental things, but that's just not the reality. Like, and I think one of the under discussed pieces that helps with sentimental things is letting time do the heavy lifting for you. I'll give you an example. Andrew knows this. Some of my listeners might remember this, but the only trophy, I didn't have a ton of trophies from growing up. I was in track and field. I probably have more like of the ribbons. I do have a few ribbons I've kept, but like my most prized possession until I was like 20, probably maybe older, was my hoop shoot champion trophy. And that was like a free throw contest I did when I was like 11. And like I won the regionals or something. And I got this massive trophy. I don't know. It's like the biggest trophy I'd ever seen. And I always joked like when, I saw Andrew's box of trophies, I was like, mine's way bigger. So it's way better. So, and the boys are like, yeah, mom's is way cooler. So I took my own advice years ago when I started going through some of my own sentimental things. And I was like, how can I integrate this into my life in a way that like, is it worth doing? Or do I want to keep it in a box and look at it once a year? And I was like, oh, the boys would probably like this. They must have been 2 or 3 at the time. They didn't really care, but I put it on, River's dresser for years. And then maybe 4 years ago, Levi's like, hey, can I have that on my dresser? Sure. But like, you take it. I think River has one of yours on his dresser. And I went to like dust around it the other day and it like literally crumbled. It was like, it just broke apart into like 8 pieces. And I was like, I felt nothing, and I was like, I was surprised. I was like, I wasn't upset. I was just like, I know Andrew could fix this if I asked you to like glue it back together, but I was like, I just don't care. And I just like immediately went to the recycling bin and I was like, that is not like, again, sometimes we think I need the strategy, I need the question, and all those things can be helpful. But again, that's kind of like the iteration of letting time do the heavy lifting for you. Sometimes as you evolve and get older, other things take more merit and take more meaning. And the things that mattered once so much to you when you were 11, 12, 20 are like, like I don't need it anymore.
I think it's fascinating about that is people that they're kind of new to decluttering would say, oh, well, you're losing your sense of sentimentality. I think that's the word. All right.
Yes.
You're becoming less sentimental because you're throwing out sentimental things. At face value, I could totally understand how people could see it that way. Oh, like you're becoming colder or more disconnected to things. But it's actually, it's the opposite of that. Sometimes you won't understand that until you've actually done it. And it's not that it's not you're giving like you're letting go of these experiences you had. I bet you remember that experience, like getting the trophy. I remember I bet you probably felt really good when you got it. And you're reminded of that feeling when you look at that trophy. But when you release those things, what you're doing is you're actually saying, I care more about the experience than I do about the physical object that came with that experience. What I've found is that getting rid of things actually makes you more aware of what you're doing in the moment, who you're with, how you're feeling, and then searching out more experiences like that versus holding on to the past and saying, oh, that was a good day. Well, why not do that? Why not do that again? Like go out and do something cool like that you're going to remember instead of sitting around with a bunch of dusty, crumbly trophies, thinking back on the glory. It's like who's that song? Like the glory days, right?
I was thinking immediately, my head went to Uncle Rico.
Yeah.
In Napoleon Dynamite, where he's stuck in high school. He's like, man, he's reliving the game. Had this game been won, I would have been all these things for sure.
Yeah. It's almost like I just hopefully I'll live a long life and be an old man someday. And I just hope that I'm not stuck in the 1980s and the 1990s and the 2000s. Oh man, that was such a cool time. And just ignoring the fact that life is still here. Like life is still going on right now. And we have these amazing opportunities. And it's a little bit easier when you have kids because we want to give our kids experiences like that so they can experience those fun times. But there's no reason, and as adults, that we shouldn't still be seeking out those really good times that we can have with family members and friends, because every day is an opportunity to do something cool like that and keep that process going. And it was, can I jump to the second thing that I was worried about getting rid of?
Yes.
So I had this rug that I bought in Morocco.
Oh boy. Okay. Yes.
this is, and I'm going to tie this back to what we were just talking about. There's actually a lesson in all this. And so when I was 22, I went backpacking in Europe. I was there for 3 months. It was a really incredible trip. Did it very much on a shoestring budget. And part of the trip, I went to Morocco, and I was there for a good bit of time. And when we crossed over on the boat from Spain into Morocco, number one, it's hard to take stuff with you. I had a whole suitcase full of stuff. So instead, what I did was I just took the bare essentials that I needed in a small backpack. And so I had 2 shirts, literally 1 pair of pants, 1 pair of underwear, 1 pair of socks, sunblock, a camera, a journal, and some toiletries. And that was it. That's all I had. So all my extra stuff, I had a camcorder, left that in Spain in a storage locker. Bunch of my whole suitcase I left in Spain. So all I had was this little backpack. And I'm like, man, this is going to be tough, but I think I can do it. And I think I was there for 3 weeks. And what I found was I actually enjoyed my time a whole lot more because I wasn't worried about managing all my crap. I knew it was safe in a locker. I knew someone wasn't going to go in the hostel and steal whatever I had, because whatever I had was on my back. And I had nothing in there was of value at all. and what happened was I was with my buddy Brian, and I'm like, man, this is awesome. There's nothing to manage here. And sorry for being gross here, but it's if it was underwear cleaning day and we had to clean our underwear, I'd just go a day without wearing underwear, right? It wasn't a big deal. And so I was just a lot more, with less stuff on my back, I was just a lot more aware of the experiences that we were having. And that was one of the most fun parts of the trip. And so as I was going through, traveling through Morocco, if you've ever been to Morocco, by the way, if you ever go there, it's really cool. People are really friendly, but you will have a lot of opportunities to buy rugs. Someone there is always selling you a rug. And so if you go to the city, they're going to, hey, do you have a rug? Come check out our rugs. And they make these really beautiful handmade rugs. They're made of mostly camel hair. They're really cool. It's kind of a less expensive version of what you'd see a Persian rug. I don't know nothing about rugs, but they're really cool. I bought a rug there. It was a lot of money for me at the time. It was $110, which I didn't really have. And so I bought this rug. It really even wasn't a good looking rug, but it was a cool experience. I love the buying experience of it. And this was a rug that I kept in the basement. And at the time we had this mold issue. I actually had it folded up, and it was in one of the closets in our basement. And I hadn't really been using it. And one of the first things I thought of when I'm I've got to get rid of a bunch of stuff now with mold, was this rug. I'm like, oh man, that was such a cool experience. And I'm like, well, for a second, I'm like, well, I could wash it and I can get rid of the mold in it, and it'll definitely hold up because it's a well-made rug. But I'm like, you know what? It's probably not going to get all the mold out. And if I keep it there, there's a possibility that it's going to grow, mold will grow back, or I can donate it. And I'm like, well, if I donate it, someone else is going to get a moldy rug, and maybe that'll make that person sick. I'm like, that's not right either. And it reminded me of the time in Morocco when I didn't have a whole lot of stuff. I'm like, well, if I get rid of this, it's actually a very Moroccan thing to do, of live with less. It reminded me of that little time in my life where I was incredibly happy and incredibly free and seeing cool stuff with very little stuff literally on my back. And I'm like, well, the best thing to do would be to get rid of it. And I did, and I don't miss it at all. And I remember every little part of that rug, and I remember how it looked and how it felt, but it's gone. I don't miss it. I'm happy I got rid of it. Happy I had the memory. That was a very ironic thing to have to get rid of, because it was a reminder that less is more.
One thing we unearthed through this process too is just one, and I want to talk about this because this was probably the one initial disagreement I wasn't expecting. I think it caught you off guard. And it made me feel really bad for a hot second. We got married in 2011. My dad's a woodworker, and one of the things he did as a gift was he made this really beautiful wooden box. And I think he made a little plaque on it. It was Andrew and Katie's wedding capsule. And I think the instructions were open it after 10 years and read whatever's in here. And it kind of had a little pseudo lock on it. And we pulled it out and we're like, oh, it's 14 years later. Did we ever even open this and go through this stuff? We hadn't, I don't think. It was one of those things which was out of sight, out of mind. And I didn't put an alert on my calendar, so forget about it. So this was 8:00 at night. It'd been a long day of just just decluttering all this moldy stuff. And I'm like, while I'm sitting here on the living room floor recovering, why don't I just open this up and see what's in it? You were on my left, and then the boys were around, and then your sister and her husband were here. We spent a lot of time together. And so, we're all chatting. I start going through this box and I start kind of making like a trash pile. So I read a card and then I put it in a pile, pull another card out, put it in a pile, and all my cards are going in the trash pile. And Megan, I think, was like, why aren't you putting them back in the box? And I was like, because I don't want these anymore. And she was like horrified. And this was a moment where I was like, oh, hold on, Katie. Okay, I'm feeling very judged right now. Like, she was like, don't you just want to put them back in the box? Like, what's the harm in keeping them? Right. And then I was like, yeah, well, she's got a good point. Right. So I started questioning myself. Am I being too cold? Right. Because it's this perception of how we think other people are going to feel. And this holds so many people back too. It's like, well, if I get rid of this, what's that say about me? Right. And then I was like, oh, is Andrew taking this personally, right? Because it can happen. It's our wedding day. And here I am like, trash, trash, trash. And then I was like, oh my gosh, I was just on a decluttering roll. And then I looked at you and I'm like, I'm really sorry. I was just trying to get this task done. I'll be honest, time has done the heavy lifting here. I'm reading these cards. These people, most of them are still in our lives. We had a really small wedding, like 20, 30 people. It was mostly family and a handful of friends. I still talk, like, these friends and family still mean the world to me. But these little cards that say happy anniversary, love ya, don't. I have the memories of the wedding day. And I looked at you and I said, I'm really sorry for being hasty. If you want to keep these, we can put them back in, but feel free to, at least read them while it's out. And then I said, and I cried. I was like, I walked away with the jackpot. Like, I have you. Like, that's the most important part of our wedding day for me. And then you kind of teared up and you're like, yeah, you're right. It's just like, I think it's important to zoom out and be like, we already have the experience. And it's not to say don't keep, not keep, but I think it's helpful to kind of remind ourselves of this. Do you remember that? Because I think initially you were upset. You were like, what?
Yeah, I was upset because I'm like, your dad made this cool box. Like, why would you get rid of this? This is like a functional box that your dad made, and it has really cool memories in it. Yeah, I did think, I'm like, that's like, we can't get rid of that. That's important to us. That was, I think, because of the thought that went into it from your mom, probably coming up with the idea, your dad making the box, and the people's thoughts that went into the letters that were on there. And so I was a little shocked at that when I'm like, oh, it's a small box. Like, that's not going to take up any space. Now, I get both sides of it, right? I could see how people would say, well, just the fact that you opened the box was a reminder of that time, and that brought up really good memories. So you should keep that, because every time you look at that box, it's going to bring up good memories. Flip side of that is, well, you could also devise some mechanisms as well, right? To do that as well, to reflect on those times. Mm-hmm. That could be like date nights and, coffee dates and stuff like that. Like, hey, remember the wedding? What do you remember from the wedding? And, we talk about those things. So you don't need physical things to do that. But that looking at that box and opening the box and reading the letters was a really cool thing that we did that brought us back to that really important day in our lives. One of the most important days in our lives.
Yeah, that's right. And yeah, just for clarity, we did keep the box. I would say we got rid of 90% of the cards in there. But they were like, happy wedding anniversary, love ya. And I'm like, okay, I love you too. Bye. Heartless, cold. How else are people describing me right now? See, this is the thing. Like, that doesn't bother me anymore because I am so anchored and that's again I'm just thinking of like the one size fits all. Like, my goal when I help people declutter isn't like, you can ask any of my one-on-one clients. Some people will straight up ask me, do I keep this or do I not? I will never tell you yes or no. I will give you some guidance, some advice, and I'm not just going to make that call for you. I'll give you a flashlight so you can turn it on and make the call for yourself, so to speak, right? I'm not just going to flip the switch. This is about empowering you. There is no right or wrong, just like you said. And I'm sure the listeners are going, oh, well, you could have displayed the cards. You could have taken a photo of them. You could have, I don't know. There's a billion things you could do to repurpose some of these things. And I know that, but they weren't meaningful enough for me to go, do I want to integrate these? Do I want to take a photo? And I think that's where it's like, that's why it's so nuanced and personal, because like on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being like, oh my gosh, this is like so meaningful. This is like the kid's baby shoes or something, and 1 being like, I was like, 1 is Doesn't mean the day is Doesn't mean Andrew is but that's what we tend to do. We kind of lump it all together. And really just going back to even your sentiment on like the t-shirts and your Moroccan rug, it's just about reminding yourself of what you did extract from that experience. And maybe you're not going to have another wedding, but how can we bring more of what we loved about that experience into our lives? You know? And sometimes that is keeping the thing. You know, if it's like, if those cards were 8s, 9s, and 10s on that 1 to 10 scale, like I would have put them back in the box, but we kept a few things in there and that's like good enough. And next time we open that box, if it's in a year, 5, 10 years, whatever that looks like, maybe we'll feel like, I don't know, will we keep the rest? I don't know. But that's what's kind of cool and refreshing about this experience too, is it evolves with you. And I think personally that's the whole point.
I agree. And if you're not sold on this concept yet, maybe you're starting a decluttering journey as somebody who lives with a professional declutterer, just start getting rid of some stuff and see how it feels. Like you don't have to get rid of the things that have deep emotional attachment. Just get rid of some stuff and see how it feels. Promise you, it'll feel good.
You sound like the declutter expert right now. I'm like, I don't know if it will feel good for that. Start with the easier items, the ones that are less emotionally charged, right?
Yeah.
But I love your confidence in that. I know you're speaking from true experience as someone who I think would have easily self-identified as very sentimental, which is really powerful because so many sentimental people really look at that as a hindrance. Like, I'm sentimental. I kind of hate this about myself. Because they're like, well, that's why I can't get rid of everything. Like, everything feels special. What's your advice for someone who's in that boat right now? They're like, wow, if Andrew can do this, I can do this. But what was the thing you anchored yourself to the most, other than obviously in some of the cases you couldn't keep it because of the mold? But let's say you had an opportunity to go, you open that closet and the mold didn't happen and you saw that Moroccan rug sitting in there after 6 months, you know?
My advice would be, it's something you just have to do. We can talk about it a lot and we can rationalize using logic whether this makes sense to keep or whether it makes sense to get rid of, but you won't experience the benefit of living sort of a clutter-free life until you actually start the process. And the process itself is what reinforces the habit. And you have to start somewhere. And that's why I think, I knew this. And what I mean by this is I knew this from my experience in Morocco, even way before I met Katie. I knew that living with less felt better, but doing it when I came back home and where I live every day is a totally different scenario. And when I was in Morocco, I didn't have like childhood toys with me, so I wasn't getting rid of that stuff. But I knew that there was something to that. It's just hard sometimes to put into place. And that's why I love this podcast, because it's, Katie does, I think, a really good job of reminding people and reinforcing this idea that you can do it. And that when you go through it, you're going to have a positive experience from it. And that will build other positive experiences. And it'll impact your life in ways that you have maybe never even thought of.
Yes.
And we hear so much from Katie's audience. We get, messages and emails and little, testimonies of people that have made really life impacting progress by just getting rid of physical things, material things. And I think that's why this platform is so important, because anybody listening to this can start somewhere, and you never know where that journey will end up. And I hope for you guys listening, this has been a helpful to hear from me as the husband of the declutter expert. And, you can live a very happy, normal life, just getting rid of things that you've been holding on to for sometimes the wrong reasons.
Well, our personal experience throughout the years really is what, and me trying to figure this out on my own years ago and having to develop my own methods are ultimately what, ended up being the spark really for this book. I never set out to, like, you remember, there was never a time where I was like, my goal in life is to be an author, a published author. Like, the fact that I wrote a book to me is still absolutely insane. Andrew saw the ups and downs, the many tearful days, the many frustrations, so much self-doubt, so much like, is this the path I'm supposed to be on? And it's been really cool to share that experience with you of, obviously, the book is titled Making Home Your Happy Place. And like, it makes me cry because it's what you're describing. And so much of our relationship, just like you said, you don't expect decluttering and simplifying your life to impact your relationship with your partner or your kids. And the reason I wrote this book is because I want to give people a realistic, sustainable roadmap to get to the heart of their clutter, understand your relationship with stuff. And here's a sustainable way to tackle sentimental things. Here are some practical ways to tackle scarcity clutter, which we didn't even have time to talk about, right? And all these different types of clutter. And it's been so profound to just continue to experience the return and the benefit of the time of decluttering that both you and I put in 6 years ago. 5 years ago, 4 years ago, we are continuing to reap that down the road. And it comes up in conversation all the time. Just my bandwidth that I have so much more capacity to be present, to live my life. And it's certainly not all unicorns and rainbows, but it's a heck of a lot better than it was years ago when I was just drowning in clutter and anxious and stressed and depressed by my own home. And I just want to take a second to thank you for being by my side through this, helping me, guide me, to give me the confidence to write this book and, ultimately change more lives with this. Cause it's a really hard, it's a hard thing. It's a hard thing to do.
Yeah. Well, you've done a great job with it. And, one of those things where if you can help, your podcast, I know, has helped a lot of people, and I hope that will continue, but also with this book that's coming out here really soon, that will, if it helps one person, that it's worth it. And I hope that if you're listening to this, and if you have doubt yourself, or have a husband or a spouse that you're like, I'm not sure if they're going to change, they can certainly change. I hope that change brings the listeners more good times and meaningful times with their family, with the people around them and their friends, which is really what I think life is about.
2 more questions before we wrap up. These are new since you were last on the show, but I ask every guest. And I'm actually really curious, especially after the mold, what your answers are going to be. Okay. Number 1 is, if you could declutter one thing from your life forever, no effort required, what would it be?
Clarify the question. Is this like a category of things, or is this something that I currently have that needs to go?
It doesn't even need to be a physical item. Just declutter one thing. Some people are like, oh, this one task, I hate this task. Or some people say, oh, no, it's like this one category of things drives me nuts still.
My phone.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Remember how great life was without cell phones? It was awesome. So good.
So nostalgic.
No phones. I would keep landline phones. That's what I'd get rid of, phones.
Yeah.
That's an old man answer. There you have it, though.
Well, no, it's like a digital distraction. It's no different than clutter, physical clutter, right? And I think so many of us, I think I'm a geriatric millennial. I don't know. You were born in 80. I was born in 88. But I feel like the last generation that remembers pre-internet and pre-cell phones, we are all deeply desiring, in a big way, to just go back. Let's just go back. I miss MTV. I miss VH1. I miss running home to watch my favorite cartoon without all these ads and all this, just the simpler times. And I mean, there's a whole lot of ways you can simplify your home or your cell phone, but I do love that answer. Okay, so the flip side of that. So that's the one thing you would declutter. What is one thing in our home you would never let go of, and why?
You. I wouldn't declutter you. I'm keeping you. Let's
Cute.
see. What would I not declutter, and why? This will change. So I don't know if I'm answering the question the right way, but whatever we're into at the moment, that's what I want to keep. But that's going to change. It's seasonal. That's a hard question to answer.
Well, what right now would you not let go of? If someone were to walk in our house and try to pry it from your hands, and you'd be like, get off, this is mine. We need this.
Oh, you know what? I don't have anything like that, really.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing in our house I would fight to the death over, unless it was a person, right? You or the boys. That's the only thing. I'm not.
What about the cats?
Nah, we can get new cats.
Oh, no,
I love our cats, but I wouldn't. They're just, See how heartless I've become through this decluttering process.
Yeah, I really bring out the best in people. So, okay, but you were about to say something though that wasn't physical item related, and then I interrupted. You had something on the tip of your tongue.
So we have my boys and I have been big into playing airsoft. That's a fun thing that we do. So we have airsoft guns. We've built a whole thing behind the house, and our boys' buddies come over and the dads come over, and we play these really cool games, airsoft games. That's fun right now. So I wouldn't want to get rid of that, because we have lots of memories being made. But at some point they're going to outgrow that. Well, we'll get rid of that stuff. So that the memories will have been made, and then it'll be easy to part with those things.
That's really beautiful. I love that. And we've had so many conversations, just for some context to the listeners over, I would say the last year. Airsoft is kind of like paintball, but a little safer. I don't know. It's rubber BBs instead of paint. And so we have woods behind the house, and Andrew built like this fort, and it's part of kind of like the base they use in airsoft. And the boys have all these kids their age that come over with their dads and moms. And it's just like, for me, I don't play. I don't love that thing. I don't love it, but there were kind of two things that came from it. The first thing was I was noticing Andrew was having to buy a lot of equipment to sustain their hobby, right? It was like, we need these new guns, we need these new whatever things to create the fort. And to me, I see stuff coming into the garage that equals clutter because I don't use it. Right. I don't use it. I'm getting triggered. I'm getting annoyed. There's no home for it yet because like, which is fine when it's just 4 guns, but then it became 5, 6 all these different gear. And I'm like, are you kidding me? So I told him,
can I just tell the
yes.
listeners, we have a whole junkyard of pallets on the side of the house. I have pallets leaning up against the side of the house. I have 55-gallon barrels and drums and like all this scrap wood and stuff. It looks really junky on the side of our house. It's total rednecky stuff. And when I look at it, I'm like, oh, this is so cool. Like we make all kinds of cool pallet forts, and I know where these forts are being built. And so this is like, it'd be like an artist looking at their paint, or like, someone who's like, someone who's like knits looking at their like yarn, like I'm going to make such cool stuff out of that.
Potential.
And Katie looks at it. She's like, our house looks like it's a junkyard. And then she's correct in that. And I've been having so much fun going on in Facebook Marketplace and like finding free stuff and the interesting people I meet. And when I find this free stuff and just knowing, and it's like outside time for the boys, like we get to work with power tools and all this cool, like manly stuff. And that is so much fun. And we do get a lot of outdoor time together. And so those pallets are like a representation, the physical representation of like what is going to happen and what's already happening. And totally rad. So that's
I want to share that too, because it's like, I think people just assume like we've arrived. Like, or they're going to feel like one day they've arrived. Like, my home is perfect. By the time you feel that way, your kids are into new things, or you're trying new hobbies and more stuff's coming in, and it's just like this continual evolution. So I want to kind of just like dismiss that myth that you ever arrive. It's just like a continuing journey. And the cool thing is you don't have to wait till like it's perfect or as close to perfect as possible to feel better. Like, you can go declutter something for 5 minutes or less and like feel better. But through that experience, number one, after it hit a certain threshold for me, I was like, we need to carve out space in our garage, which means let's declutter and make a home for it, right? Super important. So you got like pegboard and like just did a really simple way to organize it, which took it off the ground and did all these really utility things that meant a lot to me. But also too, one of the big things that now I don't see that stuff as clutter anymore is because I see, the kids coming in, and it like makes me cry. And I'm just emotional today, but like, I have always wanted to be the home that's like the hub, like I just want my kids to want to be home. And as they get older, I can see them, and they're 9 and 10 now. They still love to be home. They still love to spend time with us. But there's going to be a time when their friends become more important, or at least elevate in priority. And that's what I just told Andrew. I said, listen, I don't love airsoft. I don't, but I love that they're outside, which is really always been a high priority for Andrew and I. We just really believe in the value of outside time and family time. And also, like, it's bringing people in. It's bringing in the other dads, the other moms. Like, it's connecting us to our community. So to me, I see a lot of value in that, maybe slightly different than you. I mean, you see the value in that too, but you're playing with the kids. So you kind of extract different meaning from it, from the experience. But to me, I'm like, I don't care. Like, I don't like you said, someone could walk into my garage right now and be like, you're a declutter expert. Like, I was expecting to see like perfectly pristine and like no items, like everything behind a bin, and kind of how it's portrayed on Instagram. And I'm like, no, this is our home. This is our life. Like you said, we use it well and it works really hard for us.
Yeah, this is just kind of a new chapter in activities that involve stuff. And I think right now it's like, we're not as I'm building airsoft forts and building this new hobby for my buddies, I don't think through the lens of decluttering. Like, how could I, make the best use of this space and organize it the best way that doesn't disrupt or cause mental clutter. And that's not what I'm thinking about. I'm just thinking about how do we have the best time with our kids
Yeah.
and make really rad airsoft forts. And I want the boys to come over like, oh my gosh, like look at this cool fort. And then we have a fun time using it. And that's going to be a season in life, and then it'll be gone. Yeah, if you look at our garage right now, it's a mess. It's a mess. We have all kinds of stuff in there. I'm not even sure what to do with it. I'm like, can I use this? Where do I use it? It doesn't have a place right now, but it will. And Katie's been really patient with us in this this little phase in life, and with the garage space that's been taken up, and the pallets leaning up against the side of the house, and insulation foam board that's hanging out in the side of the house that looks really tacky. And
what's really helped me is, and I talk about this in, I think like chapter 2 of my books, it really sets the stage. And that is my philosophy I had to come up with along the way, just to help disarm, I think, a lot of shame people feel about mess and clutter, but just like, it's this cyclical thing. Like, we'll reset the garage, it'll look great. And then, like you said, a new hobby, and then the stuff's coming in, and it's like, okay. And now we're really in the hobby, and there's more coming in, and you're getting, like, you're an artist in the sense that, like, you're creating this airsoft field, you're creating this experience, you see potential in everything on Facebook Marketplace. So I've had to be like, can we pump the brakes on this, bro? Like, this is a lot right now. But the concept I had to come up with to help just disarm that shame, and also remind myself, like, there is value in the phrase good enough. Whereas good enough to me used to sound like settling and like, what? I don't want to be good enough. I want my home to be perfect. Right. And there's so many of these transitions phases in our seasons based on our kids or where we are, where there is stuff sitting kind of in limbo waiting to be used. Or maybe you're in the middle of a big house project or a renovation, and it's like there's junk sitting in your garage. You're not happy about it. Maybe you're like, are the neighbors judging me? Like, I think about this stuff all the time. I'm like, they would, but I'm like, that's not what it's about. I think this idea of what we've been sold is just such baloney, and it's so frustrating. So being able to remind ourselves, like, the good enough home philosophy has really saved me. And I'm like, there is a purpose in this. It will get solved. We will find a home for it or let it go. But that's just where we are right now, specifically with our garage, So I hope to listeners, it's not like, I probably lost 10% of listeners like, what? Katie's home isn't perfectly tidy 24/7. I don't want to listen to this anymore. This is garbage. And that's fine. I'm here for that too. I think it's really important for people to hear that, it's like, that's the reality. You have kids, you have you. It's like you tidy up, the mess comes back, or something changes. You have a new desire. So thank you for sharing that. And also, can you please stop getting on Facebook Marketplace and getting free stuff?
We were at a birthday party the other day, and I was talking to a boy who is I think he's 11 years old. And I'm like, do you get really excited for scrap wood? Because his dad's like, oh, we made like this bike ramp. And I'm like, do you get excited? I asked the kid for scrap wood. He's like, yes. And I'm like, that's cool, because when I was a kid, like, to get scrap wood, like either plywood or boards, like, what we could do with that? Like, it was like for a kid, like for a boy like me, like, I love scrap wood. I would keep whatever scrap wood I could, because I would make stuff out of it. That was really fun. And he was like, for Christmas, I want some weather treated, pressure treated lumber. I'm like, yes. I'm like, you're speaking my language. I'm like, yes. He's like, that's what I want for Christmas. I'm like, I love this. And that's the stage we're in right now. And it's so much fun. And I had a moment a few months ago as I was building this fort in the woods. And I was by myself in the woods and building stuff. I'm like, this is going to be so cool. And then I thought, like, 10 years ahead, I'm like, at some point, I'm going to have to take all this stuff down. It made me teary-eyed. I'm like, I don't want to do that, because I know we're going to have so much fun between now and then. And it's going to be really sad when that era is over and have to, like, load all this junk onto a trailer and find someone to take it off my hands. And I'll be that guy in a Facebook Marketplace getting rid of all the stuff that we had a use for. And I'm like, but for that reason, until that day comes, we're going to have a heck of a lot of fun. with all of our junk wood and barrels and fun stuff. So that's what it's about.
That's right.
Yeah.
Hear, hear. Andrew, thanks for coming back on the show.
Good to be on. You made me cry twice. Thanks a lot.
That's more than I've seen in our entire tenure together, which is how many years? 17.
Yeah.
I'll have to tell the boys. Yeah.
I'll end on this. And I meant what I said. When you get rid of stuff, it makes you more sentimental, not less sentimental. Part of that is age. Part of that's me being a dad and really understanding what's important in life and what's not important. And decluttering has been a little bit of, a part of that journey, of course. And it's been a good one.
On that note, Andrew, I love you. Thank you. Thanks for being on the show.
See you next time.
See you next time, if there is one.
Bye, everybody.